Let me introduce myself again. My name is Natalia Potekhina. I'm the head of production in Lingual Localization Studio. We specialize in preparing game projects for the new markets, including in-game localization, testing, community support, and one of the key areas of our work is voiceover for game projects. Today, I'm going to tell you about how to best plan budget and timelines for voiceover and reveal a few insider secrets about the creative process of voiceover. We used examples from the projects we worked on, and especially from these two games from the Chinese company Oasis. Let's start with the most important aspect in planning anything, the budget. What determines the cost of dubbing? First of all, the number of words in the target language. It is simple arithmetic. The more words an actor has to say, the more it will cost. The number of characters and their type, like female, male, child. For example, a child voice is a special task because typically you can't get a child's voice actors, so you need to use an adult who is imitating a child's voice. And for this special task, actors tend to request additional fees. The next one is the timing of the dubbing. There can be three types of dubbing. Lip sync is when the voiceover needs to match the lip and mouth movements. This is the most time-consuming and difficult processes, and therefore this is the most expensive one. Strict time constraints is when the length of the original and translated audio must be exactly the same. And soft time constraints is when the translated audio can be 10% longer or shorter. And the last aspect is the number of unique voices. When there is a large cast of speaking NPCs in the game, especially often most of them are minor NPCs with just 1-2 lines in the whole game, it is better to use the same voice for a couple of characters, because this will be cheaper than getting different actors for each voice. For example, if some of you have played Mass Effect, you may have noticed that a couple of minor characters share Shepard's voice. Next step is preparing script for voiceover. Script is a voiceover log kit. It is a file, ideally an Excel file, that contains all the information for the actors. So what should be in the script? It is a well-structured script. Contains all the lines for voiceover broken down by characters, one tab per character. It also should have the file names, the audio file names, because these names will define the names of the final files. Also, it should contain a description of the intonation for each line. It will help to ensure that the correct emotions are conveyed for the first time. And also, if there are some time constraints, like I was talking about, they also should be written, because actors will be using it while recording the audio. Here is an example of how a script for voiceover shouldn't look like. You can see there is like all the information at one page, and it is really difficult to understand what should be recorded and where is the description and some additional information. And here is an example of a model script. It has all the information I've just listed. The next one is planning timelines for voiceover. I'm going to show you how much time each step of the voiceover process took on a real case. We got 5 characters with 2,500 words to record with soft time constraint. So, time for casting usually takes 1 day. Every further cycles take 1 day per replacements until all the voices are confirmed. Time for recording, 3 days. Time for post-recording processing, 2 days, depending if the client confirmed the draft recordings. And time for corrections usually take 2-3 days, depending on the number and the type of corrections. Usually fixing 1 to 2 lines takes 1 day. So as you can see, each step of the voiceover depends on each other. This is why a thorough preparation is required, especially when you are short on time and budget and don't want to waste it on changes. Now let's take a look at the 2 types of casting by database and live casting. Casting by database, what it is? Each studio has a database of actors with ready samples of their voices for games, and the client can listen to different voices, different accents, and choose what they like the most. This method is best when your main priority is speed. It is also free. You just list your requirements and studio picks options from what they have. And usually there are many options available. And however, when recording real lines, the final reading may differ from the client expectations, and it can lead to changes and replaces. Another method is live casting. The clients choose this method when they care about all the small details, and they need voices that 100% match their idea of the characters. How does it work? A studio takes a couple of lines from the real text and record them with the actors choose. The client gets 3 samples with different intonations by the same voice, and they choose 1. As a result, the client gets voices that perfectly fit for the role. However, this is a time-consuming process, and usually it is a paid service. Now let's talk about what actors need to do quality dubbing. The most important thing is a detailed description of each character. Picture, age, short history of his life, tone, accent, etc. This is called a character Bible because it contains all the information about character. The next one is some links to movies, interviews with real people, actors, to get an idea of how characters should sound.
In this changing world, it's harder than ever to find something extraordinary. But every once in a while, a symbol of hope breaks through.
Here should have been an example of a person who is imitating a Morgan Freeman speech and the piece of a real Morgan Freeman speech.
Some people say I have the voice of God, or at least a voice similar to Morgan Freeman. Whether or not you win this game, you've got to decide how you're going to log out of here when it's all said and done.
Also, an actor needs dubbed files in the original language if they're available to use as a reference. And another important thing is a transcription of proper names, especially if they are hard to pronounce. For those who don't speak Chinese and don't know how to pronounce Chinese words, just try to read these names by yourself. And now I'll read them out for you. So the first one is Xuan Yuan, then is Chiu, and Lu Qinfan. So you can see the difference between what you thought and the real pronunciation. What else the studio needs to do quality dubbing? First of all, the statement of work contains some technical requirements for the files, like format, frequency, names, etc. then there might be some plugins used, for example, to make a voice sound like a robot speaking, or it's on a radio. I also had an example of how we made a radio communication. And also, if the game is going to have subtitles, they should be double-checked to see if they match the final voice-over result. And on this slide, I wanted to show you a few cultural differences and that are relevant for voice-over. First of all, about perceptions of age. If the idea of how a young and girl should sound for like Asian countries and European differ a lot. So for the Western ear, voices in anime, for example, they can sound too high and unusual. So when we have some questions with the clients about this issue, we show them examples of the real Hollywood actors or actors speaking at their age to see how they sound in like in Western countries.
我是从万星海穿越而来，向人族求救的。I crossed the myriad celeste to turn to humans.
Next is perceptions of intonation, especially if we make voiceover for the originally Chinese games. They have some special intonations which shouldn't be copied from the original game, and it's better to adapt intonation to the norms of the target language to make them sound natural.
虔诚的羔羊，愿你们在海上一路顺风。
Я научу тебя древней тайной технике, которая зовется апокалипсис. Используй ее, чтобы уничтожить полчища врагов.
And about perceptions of origin, if you need some characters to have slight accents to highlight their origin, for example, it is a good idea to use native speakers who can imitate this accent. This will sound really nice, and we have some examples of this.
Good morning, young sailor. Everyone calls me Claudia.
I am the Duke of Braga from Portugal. My ships were also raided by these pirates. I was lucky to be rescued by these two valiant heroes.
So this is all. Do not underestimate the power of voiceover, because it can make your game a hit or can spoil all the impression. And if you have any questions, you can ask, and meanwhile you can check some information about our company. Thank you.
So what do you think is the average time span that somebody should be planning before they start? For example, they want to do both in English and in Chinese. How long do you think it should take them for an average 30-hour game? What do you think they should prepare for with that kind of level of sophistication?
The most important thing is to start thinking about voiceover when all the texts to be voiced are ready. Because, as I already said, any replacements, any small changes in text will influence the whole process. So just once you have all the final text, you can start thinking about voiceover.
How long will the voiceover take? Do you think it should take them? It should take them maybe 4 hours. It should take a couple days, a week, a month.
It does really depend on the volume, but so as I mentioned in my example, it is around from 1 week to maybe a month. Because again, if the game is big, if there are a lot of characters, there can be some difficulties with the pronunciation, with the quality, with the idea of a character. So if the client wants a perfect game, they should plan for a month, I think.
Have you ever received cases where the translation is really off? Yeah, like the grammar is bad or the vocab used is off. So what happens then? Yeah.
So bad, something really bad happens. What do you do next?
We had some cases with this, and usually we check the quality of localization before making a voiceover, or if there are some slight mistakes, actors who record in voices, they check it and they make sure there are no mistakes in the recorded audio, because we can't check the whole text, especially when it's big, but actors will be reading all, so they will notice this for sure.
So thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for your help.